Inside a climate control lab at the Chicago Historical Society, archivist Jennifer McKenzie carefully opened a box of old photographs. The collection had just arrived from the estate of the Winfield family. As part of an ongoing project to digitize historical records from wealthy Chicago families during the Gilded Age, Jennifer had been handling many similar donations. The Winfield photos had dated from 1870 to 1920, covering 50 years of one of Chicago's leading industrial families. Like many collections from that time, it mostly included formal portraits. Serious expressions and stiff poses were common due to long camera exposure times back then. One photo from 1899 stood out. It showed a baby, probably around 6 months old, lying on a fancy Victorian-style bassinet, dressed in an elaborate christening gown. A handwritten note on the back said, "Theodore Winfield, March 1899. Unlike most baby portraits of that era, where mothers were often hidden under blankets while holding their child still, this baby appeared to be peacefully sleeping alone. His face looked calm and relaxed. "Dr. Harrison, can you take a look at this?" Jennifer asked the senior curator, Dr. Lydia Harrison, who was working nearby. Dr. Harrison adjusted her glasses and studied the image. "This is unusually clear for a baby photo from that time," she said. "They must have caught him during a deep sleep." "That's not what I noticed," Jennifer replied. "Look at his hands." Dr. Harrison leaned in closer. Her expression quickly changed to concern. The baby's fingers weren't curled into soft fists like most infants. Instead, his hands were stiff, with fingers stretched at odd angles. Something looked wrong. Jennifer quietly said, "This doesn't look like normal baby development." To get expert insight, Dr. Harrison arranged a consultation with Dr. Marcus Weber, a pediatric neurologist at Northwestern University who specialized in historical childhood conditions. In a meeting room at the society, Dr. Weber looked at high-resolution scans of the photo. "This is definitely abnormal," Dr. Weber said, pointing to the baby's hands. "The way his fingers are extended, especially the ring and pinky fingers, along with how his thumbs are pulled inward, fits a pattern we now recognize as neurological." Jennifer asked if it could have just been how the photographer posed him. Dr. Weber shook his head. "Photographers back then aimed for natural sleeping poses. No one would have arranged a baby's hands like this. It would have looked strange, even then. Plus, both hands are affected the same way, which suggests it's a physical condition, not a pose." Dr. Harrison asked what might cause this. Dr. Weber said it could be a range of things, possibly a neurological or metabolic disorder. The stiffness in the limbs and the baby's muscle tone, even in a still photo, pointed towards something affecting the nervous system. He also noted other details they hadn't noticed before: slight facial asymmetry, an odd angle to the neck, and possibly a curved spine under the gown. Dr. Weber added that the baby was likely sedated for the photo. At the time, it was common to use substances like alcohol or opiates to keep infants still for long photo sessions. But he emphasized that sedation wouldn't cause the physical features seen here. It would actually reveal them more clearly. So this photo might be showing signs of a medical condition. Jennifer said, "Something people didn't fully understand back in 1899. "Exactly," Dr. Weber replied. "At first glance, it looks like a peaceful baby photo, but it's actually capturing signs of a serious neurological issue that's been overlooked for over 100 years. Jennifer and Dr. Harrison started looking into the Winfield family's background for clues. The Historical Society had plenty of information about them. They were steel industry leaders during Chicago's industrial boom. Jennifer noted that Edward Winfield founded Winfield Steel in 1875. By the 1890s, they were one of the top families in Chicago, living in a mansion on Prairie Avenue among the city's elite. Records showed Edward married Catherine Blackwell in 1891. She came from another major industrial family. They had 3 children: daughters Eleanor, born 1893, Margaret, born 1895, and Theodore, born 1898. Dr. Harrison noticed that Catherine showed up often in society news articles during the 1890s. She was active in several charities, especially those helping children. Digging deeper, Jennifer found something interesting. Catherine had helped establish Chicago Children's Hospital in 1896, giving large donations specifically for a wing focused on infant neurological conditions. That's oddly specific, Jennifer said, especially since this was 2 years before Theodore was even born. Further research revealed that Catherine's family had a background in medicine. Her father, James Blackwell, had been a doctor before starting his own business. Her brother, Robert Blackwell, was a neurologist at Chicago Medical College. Then Dr. Harrison found a key detail in the birth records. The Winfields had another son, James, born in 1896. He died just 3 months later. The listed cause of death: failure to thrive due to congenital nervous affliction. This discovery suggested that Theodore wasn't the first child in the family to show signs of a neurological issue. Catherine's hospital donations came right after her first son's death. It appeared the family had first-hand experience with these kinds of medical problems before Theodore was even born. The hospital wing she funded opened just months after her infant son died. Jennifer commented that this couldn't have been a coincidence. It looked like the Winfields were already trying to address what seemed to be a hereditary issue. Dr. Harrison suggested that Theodore's photo might have been taken not just as a family memory, but also to document a condition the family had seen before. To learn more, they arranged to access the early archives of the hospital Catherine helped build, now part of Northwestern Memorial Hospital's records. After explaining their research, they were allowed to view documents from the hospital's early years, especially those connected to the neurological wing funded by Catherine. A hospital archivist showed them old record books. The Blackwell Winfield Infant Neurology Department opened in September 1896. At the time, it was considered groundbreaking for focusing on infant neurological conditions, which weren't well understood. Admission records showed a steady number of babies coming in with various nervous system problems. Even more telling, Dr. Robert Blackwell, Catherine's brother, was the department's first director. He had trained in Europe, where neurology was more advanced than in the U.S. Jennifer flipped through one of his research journals from 1898 to 1899. It showed he'd been studying a specific inherited condition that showed up in several families, including, she paused, his sister's children. The journal described various cases using only initials. One infant, listed as TWW, very likely Theodore Winfield, appeared in multiple entries from March to October 1899. The notes detailed his muscle tone, reflexes, and development. One important entry from March 1899 mentioned arranging a photo session to capture how the baby's hands and limbs looked, using a regular portrait setup to protect the family's privacy while still documenting clinical details. Copies were made for both the family and medical records. So the portrait served two purposes, Dr. Harrison said. It was both a family photo and a medical record. Dr. Blackwell's notes showed he was identifying a condition he called familial paralysis with onset in infancy, marked by stiff muscles, slow development, and unusual hand positions, exactly what they saw in Theodore's photo. Today, this would be classified as a form of hereditary paraplegia. The hospital archivist explained that this condition wasn't officially named until many years later, but Dr. Blackwell had clearly observed and recorded its symptoms very accurately for his time. The documents revealed a family using their influence and resources to understand a medical condition affecting their children, while still keeping up appearances in society. As her research continued, Jennifer was able to identify the photographer behind Theodore's portrait, Augustus Hammond, who ran a well-known studio on Michigan Avenue that catered to wealthy families in Chicago from the 1880s through 1915. Hammond's photography studio records and personal papers, donated to the Chicago History Museum after his death, gave researchers valuable insight into his unique line of work. Hammond wasn't just another portrait photographer, Jennifer explained during a research meeting. He had a reputation for working closely with doctors, creating photos that doubled as medical documentation while still looking like regular family portraits. His notes showed he had a deep understanding of how to meet clinical needs without drawing unwanted attention. A journal entry from February 1899 described a meeting with Dr. Robert Blackwell to plan the Winfield infants photo session. They discussed how to capture specific details for diagnosis using camera angles and lighting techniques, all while keeping the image tasteful and appropriate for display. This was essentially medical photography disguised as a family portrait, Dr. Harrison said. Hammond had a rare skill, creating images that could hang in a family's home without raising questions, while still providing doctors with the visual information they needed. His appointment book listed multiple sessions with the Winfields, including notes from the March 1899 session of Theodore's portrait. One entry read, Winfield infant. Special instructions from Dr. Blackwell. Nurse administered light sedation before arrival. 3 shots taken with different hand positions. Parents selected the most natural image. Second copy provided to Dr. Blackwell for records. In his photography journal, Hammond detailed how he adjusted his process to meet both medical and social expectations. Instead of using standard studio props, he posed Theodore on the family's own bassinet to create a familiar look. The christening gown was arranged to hide lower body irregularities while keeping the hands visible. Lighting was used to soften the baby's facial imbalance while highlighting the hand position. He used the fastest camera plates available to shorten the exposure time and reduce motion blur. Even with sedation, it was clear Hammond had developed a specialized technique for creating clinical records that respected family dignity. This allowed families like the Winfields to collect the medical images they needed without the stigma of overt medical photography. The result looks simple, Jennifer noted, but it's incredibly deliberate. What seems like a sweet baby photo is actually a carefully staged medical record. Learning what happened to Theodore after that 1899 portrait took extensive cross-referencing of family papers, medical notes, and historical records. What emerged was a story of a child living with serious physical challenges, and a family who did everything they could to support him. In the 1900 census, the Winfield household included a live-in nurse specifically hired to care for Theodore. By 1910, the staff had grown to include 2 nurses and a therapeutic aide, rare even among wealthy families, unless there was a clear medical need. The Winfields were deeply invested in Theodore's care, Jennifer said. Unlike many families back then who might have sent a child with his condition to an institution, they kept him at home and built a strong support system around him. School records showed that while Theodore's sisters attended elite private schools, he did not. Instead, the family set up an at-home education program, hiring tutors experienced in teaching children with physical disabilities. Family documents included receipts for frequent specialist visits, some of which involved doctors brought in from Europe to consult on Theodore's condition. They also purchased therapeutic equipment, often custom-made according to Dr. Blackwell's recommendations. In effect, they created a personalized medical and education plan long before such approaches became common. Dr. Harrison noted they were using therapies and methods that wouldn't be standard for decades. Photos from their home in 1905 showed subtle modifications, widened doorways, a hidden ramp, even a small custom elevator, all signs that Theodore's mobility needs were increasing as his condition progressed. The most personal records came from Catherine Winfield's diaries. She kept detailed notes on Theodore's daily life, treatment routines, and growth milestones. Unlike her brother's clinical notes, Catherine's writing showed a loving, involved parent. One entry read, Theodore laughed so joyfully today during his water therapy. The floating device Robert designed gives him more freedom, and watching his delight in moving was truly beautiful. His mind stays sharp and curious, even as his body struggles. He's using the communication board more now, especially to tell us what stories he wants to hear. Through her words, Theodore came alive, not as a patient, but as a bright and expressive child with his own preferences and joys. These records offered a side of him missing from the clinical documents, one full of personality and family connection. To better understand how the Winfields managed public life while caring for a child with disabilities, Dr. Harrison reached out to Dr. Ella Ari, a historian who specializes in disability history. The late 1800s were a hard time for families with disabled children, Dr. Ari explained. This was the era when ideas around eugenics and institutional care were gaining influence, and medical professionals had more authority than ever in defining disability. Families of status faced intense pressure to appear normal. Social records showed that Catherine remained active in society during Theodore's childhood, though with some shifts in focus. While she still hosted and attended events, much of her energy went into health-related philanthropy, especially projects tied to neurological research and children's health care. She didn't hide from society, Dr. Ari said. She used her social position to improve care for all children like Theodore. From 1900 to 1910, society columns noted Theodore Winfield's delicate health, while his family quietly shaped public perception. In 1902, Edward Winfield founded a medical research organization focused on pediatric neurology. The family kept Theodore included in portraits, carefully posed to preserve dignity. Dr. Sarah Livingston later identified his condition as hereditary paraplegia, progressive muscle stiffness, and weakness. Dr. Blackwell's early research and the family's care efforts were remarkably ahead of their time. Theodore lived to 44, co-authored medical articles, and inspired an exhibit in 2026 exploring how one photograph captured a life of resilience, care, and quiet medical innovation.